Right. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Honest Youth Pastor YouTube channel and Instagram today, 4 o'clock, doing some Q&A. Thank you for the questions you've sent in. Welcome, guys. How you doing? Let me know where you're watching from, because it's always crazy to know where you're watching from. So, Instagram's going to be up here. So if I'm looking here, it's you guys. If it's down here, it's at the YouTube. Okay, so they're in both places. I'm not sophisticated enough, and Instagram won't let you share to you can't stream to Instagram from everywhere else. But welcome, guys. Welcome. All right, we'll do some Q&A. Had some questions sent in already today. Gonna get to those first. If you have any questions, apparently on Instagram, you can put them in the little question box at the bottom. And over on YouTube, obviously, you guys know how comments work. You know how comments work, right? You put them in and then they pop up. But gonna spend probably right around, 30 minutes, an hour. We'll see how long this takes. Hey, Illinois, what's up? You're like really close to me, actually. Illinois is the only person. Illinois are the only people that were like, hey, over here. We're over here in the state that has high taxes. Welcome to Illinois. So, all right, I'm going to wave at some people. What's up, guys? How's it going? Hey, YouTube, you don't have the wave feature, so I can't do that. But anyway, so, Greenville, South Carolina. I feel like you have to say that when it's from South Carolina. Greenville, South Carolina. Indiana. What's up, Indiana? I'm in Indiana myself. Also, Texas. Texas is here as well. We got a lot of people. Hey, we got like 3 YouTube viewers. Where are you guys from? Comment, let me know. Mexico, Canada, we are international. I'm sure there's a rap song. New Zealand. What is that, Pitbull? Like there's a Pitbull song, right? That's like international. Texas, Georgia. All right, here we go. So if you have a question, there's 3 down here. So we're going to start with the live questions. So you guys on YouTube, if you have a question, pop it in the comment section. Johnson City, Tennessee. Go ahead and put them in the comment section. London, I'm all the way in London. Man, my mom and dad would be so proud of me. All right, let's look at these questions. Here is one of the questions. Are you interested in starting a ministry here? I'm assuming that means online. Well, that's a pretty easy, simple question we can get to pretty quick. No, you'll have to define ministry, right? So this is a hobby currently, right? That'd be cool if it was a full-time job, but it's not. It's just a hobby currently, not really interested. Let's put it this way. It would take a lot of you joining Patreon to make this possible to be a ministry. So, no pressure or nothing. Anyway, so let's get to some of these questions that were already sent in. I've got them over here on this screen. So I'm looking at this screen, looking up here, looking down here. This is very hard for my attention. Like, I'm not really good at this. So we're going to start the first one here. What is the, hold on. No, where's this at? What type of worship music do you like? Well, I'll tell you what I do like. I like Sovereign Grace music. I like that a lot. A City of Light. I like that. Their styles. I like all that. Gosh, that's pretty much the type. There was a song today. Man, oh, well, it's on my phone. I can't get to my phone. There was a song today by King's Kaleidoscope that Provoked to Proclaim put on her Twitter. I don't know. I retweeted it. So if you want to go see that, you can see they had a really good song I really like too. So that's the kind of worship music, like Jesus-centric, essentially. Jesus-centric worship music. That's if that narrows it down. All right, here's another question. Oh, this is from one of our Patreons. All right. Question is, how do you stay so objective during a really bad sermon review? Well, here's the thing. If you guys haven't checked out today's sermon review, you can go check that out. Same, if you're on YouTube, it's on the channel. If you're not on YouTube, go subscribe to YouTube and you can check it out. Early on in the sermon reviews, a lot of you guys out there in the internet lands were like, hey, you're not being super objective. You're just tearing pastors down. So I was like, all right, we got to get some sort of formula here laid out so that whenever I'm doing these sermon reviews, even if I don't like what's happening, at least I have some sort of measurable way to say, is this good? Is this bad? So that's why every sermon review we look at, especially the ones within the last year and a half, we ask 3 simple questions on all of them. So even if it's like a Kenneth Copeland, or even if it's like a John MacArthur, everybody gets asked the same question whenever we're doing that sermon review. So always ask, do they read the text, right? Pretty plain and simple. Do they read the text? Do they read any of the Bible? Secondly, do they exegete that text, right? Do they look at culture and context and bring out the truth that's in the scripture? Are they doing that? Because that's incredibly important too. Just reading the text isn't necessarily helpful, especially if you don't tell us about the text, where the text came from, who was writing the text, why they were writing the text. And the last one is, do they preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? So do they show from that text the truth and power of Jesus Christ and death, resurrection, what that means, all of that? Like, where do they include that in? Now, that's hard, because if you guys have been around for a while, I have a sermon review of myself on YouTube in which I actually missed that last point. Like, I'm the one, like, that was the crazy thing. I'm the one that does these reviews every week. And then when I preach, I missed the last point, which was just kind of crazy. Like, we mentioned Jesus' death and resurrection, but I really dive in as much as I guess I could have. So that's how I stay objective, right? So if it's good or bad, obviously if they're terrible points, I'm going to point them out, right? Like the one today. But if they aren't, if it's pretty good, I still want to have some sort of objectivity to where I can say, hey, what are the measurements here? So that's what we use. All right. How to dig deeper theologically. Do you have any books or podcast recommendations? Yes. So on this last Tuesday's live stream, actually, all the guys on the panel recommended Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. I have that. I actually have the audio book of that because fun fact about me, I'm terrible at reading, but I can hear things and remember them fine. So I have most all of my books are on audiobook because that's the only way I can learn anything. But his book's really good. Also, Nick from Christ is the Cure had recommended this one. Oh, all my books are falling down. I'm sorry, hold on. It's everything's falling down. This book is really good. 2,000 Years of Christ's Power. This is like early church. It's not like a theology book, but it's a book that is incredibly helpful for kind of like understanding the very broad basis overview of church history. It's really helpful. So I would recommend that one for sure. Let's see. Let's get a question that's just recently been put in there. Why? I get asked this a lot. So here's the question. It says, why are you not Catholic? I have Catholic friends that say they are the only true church. I'm not Catholic because the further you go into, hold on, I'm going to stop that chat real quick because there's a question there. The further you go into Catholicism, for me, the more it kind of really diverges from biblical Christianity in the sense of like early Christianity. The Reformation was really a pivot point to attempt to go back to that. So like the whole indulgences, like the development of how that happened was really interesting. How the Pope really kind of rose to this powerful position that was not at all how it was initially at all. Ryan Reeves has a really good video on that if you're interested in that. Ryan Reeves kind of covers that a little bit. And I thought that was really good. So yeah, I would not say Catholics are the one true church. I think especially I would hold to Catholicism as kind of explained within the Apostles' Creed, right? Is that we're, as a believer, as a follower of Christ, we are part of the universal, that being the Catholic, the universal church. So as a believer in all of the things that also are listed in the Apostles' Creed, but as a follower of Christ, I am now part of that family that all other followers of Christ are a part of. So in a sense, I am part of the Catholic Church, just not in the sense that you're talking about in that question. Okay, here's another question. Do you have any advice on becoming a Christian content creator on YouTube or Instagram? Yes. So here's what I would say. Here's what I would say to that. For YouTube or Instagram, so these sermon reviews, like if you're on YouTube, like if you're watching this on YouTube, it's very highly likely that you found the channel via the sermon reviews, right? And the ironic part is like over on Instagram, right? I had just put out one day and I said, hey, I listen to sermons all the time. I have a very long commute. Would anybody be interested in like hearing my feedback on some of these sermons? Because some of them are great and some of them are terrible. And like literally two people were like, yeah, that sounds interesting. So I decided to record one. My first one was Mike Todd. The one that I'm talking about isn't even on the channel. Like the Mac computer that I had at the point was like from the Stone Age. I was able to record that one, upload it, and then the computer crashed and I lost I uploaded. I actually don't know where the upload is. Maybe it is on the podcast. It might be on the audio podcast channel. But the point is that I don't have a video of it for sure. And then I just started it. So Christian content, just find like what is the thing that you're super interested in? Like that's all I do. Like doing the sermon reviews isn't work for me. It's fun for me because I really enjoy doing that. Like making the memes, that's not like... That's fun for me. Now, I don't always have ideas. I mean, there's days where you're definitely like, oh, he's reposting old content. And the answer would be, of course I am, because my brain is fried some days. So, but other days it's like, I really enjoy making memes, so I put that out there. Like those reels that I make every day, I do those because they're fun. Like I find so many videos online that I'm just like, man, like I got a thought about that. And then I throw it out on the internet and some people like it, some people don't. But the point is I just put it there because I enjoy doing it. So if you're interested in becoming a Christian content creator, don't do it for the follows. Don't do it for the fact that we have as many people subscribe to the YouTube channel as we do. The fact that I have as many people on Instagram as we do is just like, it's so weird to me because that was never the point. The first point was me venting. The legit reason I started the Instagram was because I needed to vent. Like I was really mad about a church transition that had just went terrible. And I just needed to vent. And the best way to do that was anonymously online. And then it turned into the thing that it did now. And then that spawned off the YouTube channel. And it's just kind of like, okay, let's just keep doing the same stuff, I guess. Like it's just fun. So if you're going to create content, don't do it just because like, oh, I want to be a content creator and make some money. Because I'm telling you right now, it's not that there's not money in this. I'm sure there is. I hear people make like their whole job doing this. I don't know how they do that because there's no way I could do that right now. But just do it because, just do it because you like it. Like just find what you like. Do you like studying the Bible and walking people through it? Do that. Right? Do you like making funny Christian content? Do that. Like, just don't do it because, of the follows or because you want to be an influencer. Just do it because it's fun. Just do it because it's fun. All right. So there's a couple questions over here on Instagram. Let's look at, or on YouTube, in the YouTube comment section. Let's look at that. It says, are you pre-trib or post-trib? Now, there are a couple things I don't like study a ton on, right? Eschatology is really a very weak issue for me in regards to my studying for it. And let me explain why. I can tell you exactly why. Raise your hand if the Left Behind series scarred you for life, right? Okay, so I grew up, all I heard about was the Left Behind series. And so like after I was completely dunked in dispensationalism, there was, I went to college, found out that there were more views than just dispensationalism, learned about them, and then I was like, I don't even know. Like, this is super complicated. Now, all of that to say, I've kind of settled in amillennialism, but it's not like I'm going to die on that hill. You could like probably nudge me a little bit and I'd fall off. It's not a big thing. Like, I know for some people, eschatology is like this huge big deal for them. It's not for me. It's not for me at all. All right. Here's another question off of Instagram. How do you get closer to God while reading his word? So here's the thing. One, you're going to want to be in the Bible daily, right? So for me, like I've already said, I personally am not great at reading. If I try to sit down and read the Bible, I'm going to get incredibly distracted. I am going to probably fall asleep. But the ESV app has an audio version on it. So you can, as you're sitting there and you have your Bible in front of you, you can sit down and push play and then it'll read alongside of you. Because for me, that's a huge issue for whatever reason. But I also can drive in the mornings. I have a long commute, like I said. So I'll push play and then I'll have it read through it for me. And it's one of those easy ways for me to be in the Word. Now, the question, though, is how do you get closer to God while you're reading the Word? Well, one, you have to be in the Word. But two, understanding, and for me, and again, this is just me, but understanding that like the culture and the context and the history behind some of the letters or books that you're reading is so incredibly amazing to me. Like that just, it makes it so alive, understanding that God was working then and even now using his word to move, to operate, to change our lives, even all of these thousands of years later. Now there's a couple books. I keep promising to record this church history class that I'm doing with my church, and I just, it's really hard to sit down and do that and like get all that information in there. But here's a couple books real quick, to do that, and that's just for me. Again, for you, I don't know. I mean, for me, just knowing the history helps a lot. But the book I already mentioned is a good one. And then if you're looking for a free resource, I am a Bruce Gore fanboy, simp, whatever you want to call it. He has a YouTube channel. He has a book, but you just go, if you want to buy the book, fine. But he has an entire playlist on his YouTube channel that you can go through and he just walks you through the book. He's like Mike Winger. Mike Winger started off recording his Sunday lessons and then load them to YouTube. Bruce Gore does the same thing. He records his Sunday school classes and then uploads them. That's all he does. And it's very informational. Next question. What denomination are you and why is there so many denominations since we are all one church? So I am a Wesleyan, but I feel like when I say that, I need to say that I am a non-liberal Wesleyan because apparently depending on what Wesleyans you know, some of them are apparently quite a bit more liberal than others. So I am not the liberal Wesleyans. I am from the Holiness Wesleyan movement. Why are there so many denominations? Because there's a lot of different secondary issues. And there's some very practical life issues. So for example, the Methodist Church and the Free Methodist Church split over just, paying for seats. Well, they didn't just split over for paying for seats, but some of it was paying for your pew, which sounds really ridiculous to us now, but that was a thing. And so that was one of the reasons they split. They obviously split now over LGBTQ plus stuff, which is a whole different thing. But you have denominations splitting over baptism views, views on the Eucharist, views on a lot of other things. So that's one of the, also somebody's asking on YouTube, Wesleyan what now? So Wesleyans are like an offshoot of Methodism, essentially. John Wesley and his brother Charles Wesley started Methodism, and then Wesleyanism broke off of Methodism, but it was like more of the holiness, a huge focus on holiness and sanctification in one's life, essentially. But it's basically like cousins to the Methodist, essentially. So is what it was. So another question, theological question I've been wrestling with and want to know your opinion on. Okay. Are all people made in the image of God? Yes. Okay, so this is a good one. We did a meme on this a while back, and occasionally I post it. So I think what you have to do here, and I'm going to really butcher this, so just be prepared for this, really going to butcher this question. But so we are all made in God's image, but we are all not God's children. Now let me kind of parse that out, right? So within the scriptures, what we see is that as sinners, we're in rebellion towards God. Jesus Christ comes to reconcile us to the Father and adopt us into the family. Now, being a Christian, being adopted into the family, right, is different than simply being made in the image of God. Everyone is made in the image of God, meaning we have worth, value, all of that, right? So there is a a respect, a value that we should show all of humanity, which is, by the way, part of the reason that Christians would hold to no abortion, because everybody has the image of God stamped on them, even from conception. So everyone has worth and value and should be valued in that way. And then the difference in the kind of the word usage that a lot of people don't connect is that even though we have the image of God, that doesn't mean we are God's child. We aren't defaultly adopted into the family of God. Again, there's a lot of scripture there. I don't have that the meme. I'll try to find the meme and repost it, but it's got that in the description. But the idea is that, yes, we're all made in the image of God, but we are not all God's children. And that's a distinction that needs to be made every time. Like literally every time I post that meme, people lose their ever-loving mind because they just cannot fathom the difference. All right, so we're going to go to another question over here that was sent in earlier. Oh, this is one I wanted to answer, I saw. How do I know my purpose? So here's the thing. How do you know your purpose? So the idea is that, and this is something that goes along with the meme that, or not the meme, the tweet that we posted today. So, you may not know your purpose. There are a lot of things, that, you may be talented in. There may be a lot of things that you have abilities and gifts in, but at the end of the day, you may never get to the point to where you're like, oh, this is my thing. This is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. The older I get, and the more saints in the faith that I talk to and hear their testimonies, it's pretty simple in regards to like what's in front of you right now. Just be faithful to that. Right? Being faithful where you are right now, very well may be the thing that leads you into whatever your purpose is, right? And that seems to be the case for everybody. I mean, what we see over and over again, obviously there's people within the scriptures that God calls out for this specific mission in this specific time. But we have a whole lot of other people that are just living their lives and God is using and working through in a way that that they're just honoring God where they're at. We have a whole bunch of principles, especially within the Old Testament, or do this, do that, do this other thing. And as you're doing those things, honor God, right? So we have, I cannot remember, again, I'm terrible at just recalling scripture, but I think it's in Deuteronomy where it's talking about like when you're walking with your children in the way, tell them about what God has done for his people. When you're like everything you do, point your children to God. And the idea here being that as you're just living life, like the things that have been given to you by God, the gifts that have been given to you by God, the things that have been put in front of you, your job right now, just do those things really well. And in so doing those things, you will be honoring God and really fulfilling your purpose, which is just to know God and make him known. I think we all, hold on, I'm going to stop this real quick because there's some questions scrolling by over on Instagram. At the end of the day, your job is, you're just being worked through sanctification as a believer in the Holy Spirit. And that just means that at your work, you do your best to glorify God. When you're at home, you do your best to disciple your family. When you're with your friends, you are living there as a witness to who God is. We all look for this big, huge purpose. And for some people, like, they will have that. I think for most people, though, like, just live your life in obedience and faithfulness to where God has you. And in so doing, you will fulfill your purpose. So here's another question. How would you approach a pastor friend who eisegetes the Bible? I would just have a conversation, right? So if it's on a specific passage or something, I would just simply sit down with them and be like, hey, walk me through how And this is going to be a cheesy example, but like walk me through how you got to the point where you think David slaying Goliath is us slaying our dad. Like, how did you connect those two dots? Like, because that's within the narrative here, that doesn't seem to be what's going on. And when Jesus says the Old Testament of the prophets talk about him, that doesn't seem to fit with that. And it's just a matter of that would be what I would say. Just if you are friends with them, I think the easiest thing to do is to have that conversation. So just sit with them, ask them questions. How'd you get from point A to point B here? Like, what do you do with this context? What do you do with this, cultural thing that's happening here? All of that. All right, here's a question. Hey, Paul from Paul and Morgan. He's going to be on the live stream in a couple weeks, so just shout out to that. But Paul's question is thoughts on deliverance ministries, YouTube channels who say we should be casting out demons on the regular. So I have, so I've only seen a couple. YouTube does not bring up a lot of these deliverance ministries for me. Probably because when I see them, I just don't click on them. I've seen a couple on Instagram, though. A couple things where, like, people are shaking on the floor, writhing. My take on it. My immediate take, just from my history, denominational history, all of that, is, like, that's just a little crazy. One, we see that we don't even see that exact thing in the New Testament, but if we do see demons being cast out, it is incredibly rare. This is what it reminds me of, is Simon the Magician. That's what it reminds me of, is him seeing like all the power that the Holy Spirit can do and him wanting it really, really bad. That's what it reminds me of. I think it's fake, to be quite honest with you. I wouldn't give it any credence at all. But that's just from what I've seen. I'm just like super skeptical of stuff like that, especially whenever like we're looking at like the early church, the New Testament, Paul's epistles, all the epistles from the apostles, and we're just like, I don't see any of that there, right? So just I don't like it. So that's just me. But again, I haven't looked into it, but my immediate take is, nah, that's my immediate take. All right, let's see. It looks like a couple more questions have popped in here. Let me see. What are your thoughts on Dougie Wilson? All right, so let me tell you, I have a limited knowledge on Doug Wilson. I did do a sermon review on Doug Wilson. The sermon was really solid. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't see any issues with it. Like, it wasn't the best sermon ever. You can tell that Wilson isn't the best public speaker in the world. You can kind of tell that when you listen to him speak, but the sermon was good, I thought. You can go watch that if you want. Plug, YouTube sermon review plug for there. I've seen a few of his YouTube videos. I know people bring up federal vision and Christian nationalism all the time on him. I don't know a whole lot about federal vision, to be honest with you, so I don't know if I can really speak to that. And then the Christian nationalist stuff, as far as Doug Wilson goes, like, I think he's one of those guys that sort of like, I know I'm probably going to get like pounced on because I say this. I feel like that's like kind of like his shtick, right? Doug Wilson like is known for the cultural warrior-esque type of thing. And so he's just going to keep doing that. And a lot of people are really going to like that. I don't think it's like what he does is necessarily bad. I think he's speaking a lot of truth in regards to what he sees in culture. I think that sometimes, from what I've seen, sometimes his takes are sort of heavier than his gospel presentation in regards to what he's saying. But that's mine. Like, I don't think he's terrible. I guess that's probably the question you're asking over here on Instagram. I don't think he's terrible. I think he seems pretty legitimate. It's just one of those things where I'm just kind of like, anybody that's got like an audience that like are ride or die for them, and then a whole bunch of people over here that just hate him to death. It's just weird that he's so polarizing. Maybe I've just not seen the right videos. I don't see why he's so polarizing, to be frank with you. He does have some like Mark Driscoll vibes a little bit, but that would be the red flag that I would see. So that's mine. Oh, hey, we got something over here in the YouTube chat. Here we go. Question: who are you listening to for worship and podcast, and what are some books you are currently reading that you would recommend? So I don't really have a lot of time for podcasts, to be frank with you. Most of my free time when I do drive is taken up by listening to sermons that I'm going to do for sermon reviews, or audiobooks. So no podcasts. But as far as books that I'm listening to, and this is the reason I'm listening to these books right now, is because, as I mentioned before, I'm teaching through a church history class at my church. So for the third time in this stream, let me bring up 2,000 Years of Christ's Power by Nick Needham, that one. And then I'm reading Church History in Plain Language by Bruce Shelley. That one I would recommend. And then Ryan Reeves has an audio. It's an audio lectures that he's given that was turned into a book. I forget exactly what it's called. It's some weird name, but it's basically it has to do with the formation of the canon. All three of those I think are really good for different reasons. So if you're looking at early church history, Needham's book is good, but it's like 3,000 foot view. Like, he doesn't really get in the weeds, which I don't appreciate. I really wish he'd get a little bit more detailed, but he is covering a lot of time, so I understand why he can't. Church History in Plain Language by Bruce Shelley does that a little bit better. I think he gives a lot more details, and it's a lot more helpful in regards to like some of the more detailed things. And then Ryan Reeves, I haven't found anything I don't like about Ryan Reeves' stuff. His stuff is always pretty solid. All right, we're coming up on about a half hour, so we're gonna probably do like 2 more questions, and then we'll dip out of here. How do you navigate being friends with people who are LGBTQ plus? That's a good question. I think most of us probably have friends that are LGBTQ plus. So as believers, here's the thing that I think we need to keep in mind. Like, you're a sinner. Everybody you know is a sinner. It's just, do they know Jesus or not, right? And it's one of those things where, as you are navigating around everyone else in the world, right? Again, going back to what we were talking about before with purpose, like, you are living your life in light of Christ as a changed person. Your heart and your mind are being renewed, right? And so one of those things that you should be doing is living that gospel life out in front of everyone, not just your LGBTQ plus friends, but also, your friends. Your friends, unfortunately, that like right now, I know a handful of examples, people that have committed adultery and are working through that now, or people that are incredibly greedy, or people that are very, very gossipy, right? So I think one of the things we need to realize is that, like, you are around people all the time. So really what you are doing as a Christian is saying, how do I navigate this world surrounded by unbelievers? And how do I effectively and efficiently live my life in the light of the gospel so that they can see Jesus in me? And again, just probably because I've been so engulfed in the early church stuff, one of the things that I think is really, really helpful is saying, okay, well, like, how did these early Christians do that, right? So they just simply lived their life saying, okay, what did Jesus teach? What did the apostles pass down? And then we're going to live our life to the best of the ability to do that. So you have believers that they've been changed by the gospel. They are living in an incredibly pagan world, and there's lots of things that are being asked of them that they just simply won't do. But they are living in an incredibly generous way. So the Roman Empire, for example, if you read some of these books, is really, really confused by the believers, which I think our culture should equally be incredibly confused by us. So the believers go out into the world. They are incredibly generous with their time and their money and their food, right? So it is known, there's a few letters that are written, that it's pretty clear that there's amongst the Christians, there isn't anybody that's in need. And not only just among the Christians, but like ethnic communities outside of Christianity, the Christians are reaching out and helping those communities as well. And so even though the Romans are really, really confused by the Christians, they don't like them because they don't worship the same gods that they worship. They refuse to burn incense to Caesar or to sacrifice to the other gods. But they look at them and they're like, these people are incredibly generous. One of the things in Pliny the Younger's letter, I think, when he writes to Trajan, one of the things that he says is like, they don't cheat on their spouses. Like they are incredibly faithful to the people that they are married to. They don't steal. They don't cheat. Like these are things that they're known for. And that's incredibly interesting that they're known for their generosity. They're known for their faithfulness. They're known to follow Jesus. Like there's these very simple lists of things that the Christians are known for. So let's transfer that to now, right? So as believers, now living in a highly pagan society, much as the early Christians did, we go out and are known for our generosity, our faithfulness, our hard work, and the fact that we do all of this in the name of Christ and that we don't waver on that at all. And so whenever we meet somebody, for example, that is entirely greedy or gossips a lot or lies a lot or is cheating on their spouse or is part of the LGBTQ plus community, right? We treat them with the same grace, love, and mercy that we have been shown in Jesus Christ. And we live that out. Now, there are times in which clearly what we see within the early Christians is that there are times where they either have to leave jobs, they lose opportunities. Some of them are killed, which we don't have to deal with that, obviously, but they lose out on opportunities specifically because they follow this Christ. But even in so doing, they are incredibly faithful to Jesus and are still generous. Like they exude this love and generosity for the people around them. And it confuses the ever-loving everything out of the Romans. They just don't know what is going on with these Christians. All right, so last question here from YouTube before we dip off here. I don't know if you answered a question like this yet, but how would you deal with someone who is pro-choice and acknowledges that it is murder but doesn't care? Here's the thing, and I think we forget about this sometimes, and some of us maybe have never been to a place in our head like this before, just by God's grace. But there are people that you are going to meet that are very, they're just, their hearts and their minds are darkened. That's just the only way to put it. Like they are in full rebellion against God. Even if they don't believe in God, they still hate him. And so it's one of those things in which how would you deal with someone who is pro? So again, just the same way I answered the question before, like you still love them, are merciful with them, are gracious toward them, but you hold your line that everybody is an image bearer of Christ, and as such, are due the they have value and worth, and it's one of those things where they're going to think you're insane, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And you just keep being faithful in the situation that you're in. So if you work with somebody like that, you keep being incredibly generous. You keep being incredibly merciful. You go above and beyond in doing so, with the hope that God uses that to plant a seed in them. Obviously, I would hope obviously you'd be praying for them, that you'd be including them in your daily prayers, that you'd have other people pray for them. Maybe your church has like a prayer list or something. You put them on that. But it's one of those things where like we have to realize you're not going to change their mind. God may use you and the circumstance and the opportunities that you're given to talk to them to plant seeds that the Holy Spirit will eventually use to change their mind. But he's the one that ultimately does that. So that's something to remember there. All right, let's see. Probably going to get off, but let's see if there's any more questions. If there are, go ahead and put them down, and we'll see what we can get to. I'm going to scroll back through here. Yeah, there's nothing else there. All right, so I think we'll probably go ahead and leave it at that. There's some other stuff I kind of want to do today, so we're going to get to that. Guys, thank you for hopping on. Appreciate it. If you're on YouTube and you liked this video, you thought it was helpful, go ahead and leave a like. Go ahead and leave a comment if there's something you think that I was wrong about, because guess what? I'm sure there was something, and that's okay. This is fine. There are a lot of people that are way smarter than me out there that could probably answer these questions way better. Take everything I said with a grain of salt. And Happy New Year. And here's the classic dad joke for you. I'll see you next year.